Hi, I'm Jacquire King, and I've been making records professionally for more than 30 years. I've had a fantastic journey and worked with many amazing artists along the way. I've got some tips and tricks I'd like to share with you from behind the scenes of the record-making process. Let's talk about making rough mixes. I think it's an important part of a production record-making process. Now, granted, if you're just mixing and you're getting the material from someone else, you won't have had the journey of making rough mixes. But maybe they've made a good rough mix at the end of their process that they will share with you, and that's definitely something to request. What I want to talk about is in wearing the many hats and the long journey it takes to make an album, or sometimes just a record, a song, record a song. It goes through a development stage of when the initial recording happens, the embellishments and additions that are made. It's good to have a reference track for someone if they need to finish writing a lyric. So at different stages of the process, you're going to need to have reference mixes, rough mixes. It's kind of an essential thing to have perspective and be able to share it with others. Like I mentioned in the case of someone needing to finish some lyrics, it's nice for them to be able to just hear the instrumental and work to it and think about it and write the lyric and pen the lyric. But what's essential about it that I want to share is the experience you get as the producer, recordist, and being really hands-on in the recording process. It's an opportunity for you to be in touch with how the finished product is going to feel and what you've got and how it relates to that. Now, as you go, you know, on the first day you record, well, maybe you only recorded half of the elements, but getting an idea of how that fits together and how that feels is an important interaction to have. And then being able to listen to that outside of the studio, having a rough mix gives you that opportunity. Maybe someone couldn't attend the session, or you need to have a string part written, or so forth and so on. Very nice to have that rough mix to send to someone to actually write a chart and to familiarize themselves with the arrangement and know what the key of the song is, the tempo, and just sort of get a lot of indications about where things are headed. And at it's like every stage. If you make a rough mix, when you make a substantial addition or change, helps you keeps you in touch and informs you along the way in the journey. Because if you don't do a lot of that and you get to the very end, it's sometimes hard to have that accumulated experience and a reference point of what you've been doing to get things finished. And so having a rough mix to check yourself against when you're actually mixing, and have had input and your own thoughts along the way that you can put into the mix, I think is really essential. Having that accumulated experience to be able to put into the mix. Because, I mean, I've even made this mistake many times over years ago where I thought that once everything was recorded, it's like, okay, it's time to mix. I turned mixing into too big of a process. When the rough mixes were already sounding pretty good, I didn't have to reinvent the wheel. I just needed to build upon that experience and refine the tracks to get them to sound like a finished mix, to get the mix to come together. So I made the mistake many times over of doing too much in the mixing process, and having that as a reality check. It's like, well, that last rough mix sounded pretty good and I didn't do 10% of what I'm doing now. Should be an indication of like maybe you're overworking it, overdoing it, overcooking it, and taking some of the life out of it. Another point that I'll make in closing is that if you're in an unfamiliar space, hopefully you've taken the speakers that you know and trust with you, or they have the same speakers. Now, your speakers, even though they're your speakers, let's say you take your speakers with you, they will sound different in a different space just because you're in a different environment. So having those to trust is one part of it, but working on a rough mix will help you begin to understand the different space that you're in, and then you can listen to it away from that environment and see how it translates, and you be able also, if you have the opportunity, to take that rough mix and listen to it in your space with your speakers and see how it feels in there. So it's a way to stay in touch with the process, your progress, and then also a way to keep your relationship and connection to your monitors and your output. Best wishes for your mixing.